I didn't change any of that short of these first four. One was able to bulk on the rest of them, anything down on it, for the 4 Electro-Voice wireless microphones. Okay. And those are all up and working. They said it was like noise on the cable, but I messed around with both ends and they were dead solid.
Okay, yeah, I think it was up here, so maybe someone replaced it or something.
Yeah, because they're on, they're up, and they're fine. Actually, we're picking up one of the mics. Yeah, I want to still turn on. I can kind of hear myself. What we did change is some of the routing, like the video line feed was plugged into a subgroup output. And right now, I've moved it over to aux6 to feed the line back to this little setup for video recording. I'll leave it at this little setup. This is actually the wrong type cable. This is a speaker type cable. It's unshielded 2-conductor cable. Looking at it from the outside, sort of reading the number of the cable, is kind of tough to tell what is what on the cable, but inside you can tell it's just standard like 16 gauge 2-conductor cable. And it does send the signal back to the video. But like I said, I noticed it was kind of a distorted, sort of breaking up sound. And I noticed it was hooked in all the way to the microphone level input to that little mixer which feeds the VCR, DVD recorder setup. The level coming out of here is a line level signal, and ideally it should be hooked to an auxiliary input on that small mixer that can handle the higher signal level. Plugged into the mic level, it's easily overloading the input circuitry, giving you that breaking up sound. Okay. And the same way into one of the computer feeds to do the recording. Plugging into the mic input jack, the 1/8" type style mic input jack, will be severely overloaded from the line level out of the board, which sounds like what was happening when you're describing what some of the recording sounded like. So using a line level input will take care of that from wherever you would pick up an output from the board from. But for the video recording, getting the correct cable put in, it is set up on aux6, which I have set to be post fade when these buttons are down, which is not a lot of difference between up and down, but on aux6 with them in post fade, I recommend having these turned up to roughly the 1 o'clock position, which is sometimes called roughly unity. I would say that's about where it is on the board. And then the master overall level of aux6, we run at about noon to about 1 o'clock as well. And what that will do is with these in the post-fade position, we'll track whatever you do with the faders. If you turn up a fader or down, the level's controlled here ultimately, then it goes up to aux6, through the master out, then to the video. So if you turn up a microphone here, it's going to be turned up on the video recording at the same time. Okay. If these were in pre-fade, with them in the up position, then you could set the level, but any changes you do to the overall mix will not be reflected on the recording. Mm-hmm. And worst case, you would turn the mics down on the house system, but that mic's still open on the video recording. You'd hear the mic get moved around or talking off stage or something with it. So leaving that in post-fade for the recording would be the way to leave it. Somewhat, I guess you were using the choir mics for like ambient pickup for room sound to pick up some of the audience.
Maybe.
If that's the case, and that does make sense to have a little bit of live ambient to the recording so it doesn't sound too super dry. There's a couple ways you could do it. I think ultimately to make it somewhat consistent, I would leave them in post-fade for the choir mics, but on the 2 choir channels, don't assign those channels to any output. So you can turn them up here, it'll turn them up on the auxiliary send feeding the recording, but it will not, since they're unassigned with all these switches, that one was, now they're all up. With these up and unassigned, you can turn them up here, but it won't be coming out of the house speakers in. So you won't hear the choir mics being amplified with all the room noise. You can listen to it in headphones back at the recording, or you could do what they call PFL on aux6, which sends that signal soloed to your headphones then. Okay. and then you could listen to what's going to the video recording from PFLing that channel and hear like, okay, I need more or less ambient. Or if there's a case where something on the stage is louder and you don't have as much of it in the overall room mix because it's naturally loud on the stage, but for the video recording, you would want some more of it presented in the video recording of it. You would want to maybe come up here then and turn that level up a little bit higher to compensate for having it lower in the house, but still needing a presence of it on the video recording. So you could kind of tailor the mix to the video from the auxiliary sends. Again, either listening here with the headphones and having that PFL'd to listen to that auxiliary to the recording by itself, or back there if someone's listening to it with headphones on. But I would start with them in the same position so they stay pretty well even, and then it'll track what you do here mix-wise. Auxiliary number 1 feeds the second monitor jack in all the floor boxes now. So you can plug in like the small little PV molded monitors, you can plug those into the second monitor jack, and that is controlled on auxiliary number 1. So and that is a pre-fade. Test 1, 2, and that would be in vocal 1, 6. That's channel 3 here. Testing 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, test 1, 2. Did we unplug the monitors?
It might have been unplugged because we were looking for that.
1,
second
2.
channel.
Yeah, I can see it there on the amplifier, so that's it. Yeah, the monitors itself isn't plugged into the jack, but it was, I could see